In today's project, we're going to take leftover iron-on vinyl to create this pajama top. Let's make this. My inspiration for this project is that the idea of using up your little bits of scrap vinyl has always been something that I'm interested in, but I've never really done a lot about it. I keep all of those scraps, but I've never really found somewhere to use them. But I have been, and I saw this project about 12 months ago, but lately I've seen it a couple more times, particularly from DIY-aholic. She has done a project recently where she has used strips of vinyl to then do a t-shirt design. And I think it's a really cool idea. I wanted to try it out because I've never done it before. So I thought I'd have a go and see if we can do it together. So the materials in this project are very minimal. I've got a standard grip mat because we're using iron-on vinyl. I've got my folder full of scrap iron-on vinyl, and then I've just got a t-shirt. The t-shirt can be in any colour as long as it contrasts with the vinyls that you use. So the use of design space is going to be the most straightforward component of this project. All I'm going to do is create a text that says tired and then a text that says now, and I'm going to then overlap them. So I've typed tired. I'm using caps lock and I'm using a font called Crunch Chips to write the tired. I want it to be around 20 centimeters in width. However, when I do 20 centimeters in width, it doesn't get very tall. It only goes to about 6 centimeters high. So what I've done is I've selected the word tired and then I've gone down to combine and unite. And so what that means is now I can stretch the font. So I can stretch the word. So now I've got it to be about 9 centimeters high. Now you can't do this with every font type because sometimes when you stretch it, it'll look weird. But this one, Crunch Chips, actually allows you to stretch the font to a taller font and it doesn't make it look out of perspective. So you've got to really choose the right font type for that kind of process. So then I'm going to type the word now. I'm putting that all in lowercase. So tired was in uppercase, now is in lowercase. And I've chosen the font Mona Lisa. And both of those were, Crunch Chips and Mona Lisa were both downloaded from 1001 Fonts. So, and I used Wordmark to try out the fonts prior to going into Design Space. To find out how to use Wordmark, go back to my New Year's Eve wine bottle tutorial because I go through exactly how to use Wordmark to help you just choose your fonts. So now that I've got the word now, I've kind of put it over the top of my word tired and I've created an offset. Now the offset I created was 0.3. You can do thicker, you can do thinner. It's just so that I can put the word now over the top of tired and it kind of stands out a little bit. Then I'm going to choose the word tired and then the offset, and I'm going to go down to combine and I'm going to go to subtract. The reason I've done that is so that now you can see around the word now we have a gap. So then the word now will pop out a little bit more. It will stand out really nicely against the word tired, particularly because we're doing a striped text for the word tired. And so I don't want the word now to just disappear. After I've done that subtract, I've noticed that there are a couple of shapes underneath the word now. Because I've never done this technique where you place different pieces of vinyl next to each other and then cut, I'm a little concerned about it cutting small, intricate shapes. So what I want to do is get rid of that little loopy triangle thing underneath the O and the W of now, and then there's this tiny little speck, and I've zoomed in so you can see that tiny little speck underneath the W. So all I'm doing is using shapes from the free shape section, and then I just select the subtract and the shape, And I just go down and combine and subtract again. And I'm going to repeat that over and over again until I get rid of all of those components. That loopy that loopy triangle is a little bit tricky. So I've had to keep duplicating triangles to get rid of it. One trick about that is you've always got to have the shape on top of the word in the layers panel. You'll see here with my final triangle, I've got the subtract above it, and when I click subtract, it subtracts the word, not the triangle. So make sure the triangle or the shape that you are using as kind of like an eraser is on top of the subtract or the word that you are trying to delete. So once I've got rid of all of those, I'm now going to just change the text now back to its original color, which is the same color as tired, because I'm going to use the one matte for both the words. And then I go into make. When I go into make, all I'm going to do is make sure I mirror the project, and then I am going to cut it on everyday iron-on. All you'll need is the blade that comes with the machine for that. And then let's see if this cuts. So I've just collected some of the vinyl that I have that are in a similar colour palette. So I've gone with reds, pinks, with a little bit of silver and gold through it. And then all I'm going to do is cut them into strips. Now I'm going to cut them into strips using my Cricut cutter. And I'm just doing a 1.5 centimetre strip. Now you can choose whatever width strip you want to. I suggest making sure that you use a cutter though, so that you know that they are going to be straight, even cuts, and then so that when you put them up against each other, you're not going to have any wobbly components. So trying to make sure that you're going to have a product where you can push them all up against each other at the end is optimum. So to put all of these strips down now that we've cut them, there's a couple of steps to it. So I'm going to use this heat resistant tape that I got from, it's a Siser product. I don't know if there's any other ones out there, but Siser seems to be the only one that I've found. So I'm just going to put about 4 strips of that down. So it's going to have the sticky part of the tape facing up. So it becomes like an extra, like a transfer tape kind of thing. So make sure the sticky part is facing upwards. And then you're just going to lay your strips. Now I'm laying them in a diagonal fashion. You could lay them straight up and down. The reason I've done diagonal is because I just thought if I'm doing all of this work and I lay them all straight up and down, then I might find that some of the strips aren't even used. So I thought doing it diagonally, not only does it give you a little bit of extra visual appeal, but it also means that we get a little bit more of that colour showing through and not missing whole strips of it. I've done this in a semi-random order because I've got more of the gold and the silver strips than I do of all of the different kinds of pinks. And then once I've put them all down, I'm going to make sure I use my brayer tool to really stick them down because they are tending to lift. And if they lift, we all know that it's just going to have a little bit of a mangled effect inside our Cricut. So make sure that you use that brayer tool. It's going to be your friend for this project for sure. And then I've just trimmed all of the edges around the mat that don't have a sticky component. The reason I've done that, again, just so that those flappy bits don't do anything to prevent our Cricut from cutting it, because they will get a little bit caught up in the machine. With the weeding of this, I've just found that, I don't know if there's a better technique, but I just found just doing one strip at a time has been as helpful as I can, helpful advice as I can give. Just it means that you are just doing one little component at a time. You're not trying to find a whole word, and actually it's quite tricky to see some of them. So by doing that one strip at a time, it actually kind of helps to follow through. So just to lift this up, the word tired, just grab your weeding tool and kind of get underneath your sticky tape. So that heat resistant tape is what's kind of holding all of those lines together. As long as the heat resistant tape lifts, then the rest of it should all come together. That's why we put 4 lines of it down rather than 1 or 2, just so that it gave it a real good surface to stick to. So see, it's all lifted perfectly. And now I'm just trimming those edges. The reason I just want to trim those edges is just basically for my aesthetic purposes, but also just to get rid of anything that could get in the way of our process. So I'm just trimming everything along the base and along the top that's on the outer edge of the heat tape, and then just cutting off a few extra edges. So I'm just using my mini easy press to iron this on. If you've got a actual heat press, then I'm sure you know what your setting should be, and if you're using an iron, you're kind of looking at that cotton setting, but you make sure that you've got to turn the steam off. Now I've got one of these little t-shirt centering things that I just got off, I think, Shein, really cheap and nasty. But if you don't have one of those, all I normally would do is just fold your t-shirt in half and then just give it a little bit of an iron, so then you know where the center of your t-shirt is. And then make sure that you do iron your t-shirt before you start putting down your vinyl. That just gives your t-shirt a little bit of heat. Also, obviously gets rid of your crinkles, but gives your t-shirt a little bit of heat, which means that your adhesive has got something to grip onto. Then I just fold my decal in half and just give a little press at the top so that I can line my word up with the center of the t-shirt. Make sure you're using baking paper for this. We do have the heat sticky tape stuff, and we've also got the backing, but you don't want to ruin anything now that we've done all of that work. So better to be on the cautious side. So I've just got baking paper. I think people use Teflon. Some people have got a specific matte thing that you can use, but I just use baking paper. And all I'm doing is running my iron over, or my easy press, I'm running it over the word, and then I'm just giving it a little bit of a press down. Now I've got very different types of vinyl here, so hopefully it should all work. And then once I've ironed, most of the iron-on vinyl is a warm or a hot removal, but if you've got specific ones, make sure that you check the instructions. And now let's see if it works. I'm just going to peel this up. Oh, it's looking good so far. Oh geez, now I've run into a problem. I didn't actually think about this. So I've used Smart Vinyl from Cricut, as there's a pink colour in there, and it's got this really thick backing, and I feel like that might be my issue here, because the thick backing, if you don't heat it up enough, the vinyl doesn't stay on your t-shirt. Oh, kerfuffle. Oh, all right. I'm going to start at the other end, see what happens here. Sometimes have you ever noticed that with just regular adhesive vinyl as well? You're having trouble at one end of your design, but if you go to the other end and you pull from the other direction, sometimes it works. I don't know why, don't ask me, but I've just found sometimes if you just move to the other end and start at the other end, sometimes that vinyl manages to stick itself down. But this is very carefully pulling this up and then ironing it down as you go. Some of these bits are popping up, so really make sure that you go back and give it a good iron afterwards, not only just to keep your vinyl down, but also some of those bits that have lifted, you can hopefully fix some of those. Ooh, can you see that lifting there? In the E there, between the silver and the... Well, it's a tricky process. I've never done this before, so I'm okay with it. But just giving it a little bit more heat and moving it along, doing your best. So you can see there with the E and the R, I've had a little bit of lifting happening, and so it's gone a little bit jaggedy in between the reds and the golds. But maybe if I cut as I went, so after I had lifted the backing for the D, if I'd cut that off, and maybe it wouldn't have had so much weight behind it as I lifted it, maybe that could have helped. If you have any tips or tricks about this, or you find something out as you have done this project, please comment below and let us know so that we can all learn about this together. The other issue I found is that I did not weed some of the components, so that little parts of the E and a little part of the R. So I've got to go back and redo that. All I'm going to do is just underneath the, and I've gone off screen here so I can't show you. But essentially all you need to do is put your iron or your mini easy press under your lettering, and then the glue heats up from underneath, and then you are able to just lift it with a weeding tool. I'll try and show you how to do that one day. Sorry about that. So now that I've got fixed the R and the E off screen, I'm now going to put the now down and then just give the whole thing an extra iron. The reason we do the extra iron down is just to make sure that it has stuck. And now remember, you can't wear this or wash this for 24 hours. It means that you've given your t-shirt enough time to cure. All of those vinyls are able to cure onto the fabric. And when you do start washing it, you shouldn't have any issues of lifting of the vinyl. How great has this project been to use up your leftover vinyl? I think that's a really awesome way of not only showing off your colour palette, but also just using up those little scrappy bits that you're not really sure on how to use. One tip for everyone is just to make sure that you are using the similar either brand of vinyl or one that has a similar backing, because I use the Cricut Smart Iron-On vinyl as one of the strips, and because it's got that thicker backing, not only did it need a bit more heat to make the vinyl stick, but the thicker backing then lifted the vinyl up. So it has caused a few little issues in my R and my E. So that's my one tip for everyone. But I think this is a really great way, and I think people really need to start experimenting with how they can use all of that leftover vinyl, because we all know that as a craft, it's not a very sustainable craft, because we do throw a lot of stuff out, particularly all of our backings and things. So this is a great way of maybe just reducing our waste just that little bit more. I hope you've enjoyed today's project, and I can't wait to see you next week for our next project. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget, you can always jump on my Instagram, head over to my Etsy store, or even check out the videos YouTube recommends for you down below.